Joining on the sofa with Esther this Sunday is Erwin Keiles, musical director, producer and guitarist, who has probably worked with more chart-topping artists than any other musician in the UK. Born in South Africa, he came to England in 1979 and soon established himself as a top session guitarist and musical director in the pop industry. Okay, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are across the globe. Welcome to a very special On the Sofa with Esther. And with me today, I have Erwin Keiles. Erwin Keiles. Have I pronounced your name correctly?
Correct.
Yeah, sometimes I have those senior moments that just happen. And Erwin is many things, many things. He's a musical director, a session guitarist. He's a dad. He's a very good barbecuist, if that's ever a word, but it is now. He's a husband, and he's he's very soul-felt. He's been in the music industry for a very long time and successful, and he has worked with, partnered with, played with some of the most, esteemed artists and singers and musicians in the industry, and the list around that goes on and on and on, from Donna Summer, Take That, Come On Help Me Out Here, Jamiroquai, the 3 Degrees, the Former Supremes, the Supremes, the Temptations, and so many others. So welcome. So I would love to get to find out a little bit more about Erwin, the person who is Erwin. You have this passion and love of and for music, but also you can tell with this gentleman that it's a soul thing. It's got to be a soul thing. And so, Erwin, just give us a little bit of insight into how you got into the music industry.
Okay. When I was born in South Africa, I was born into a musical family. My mother wasn't a professional, neither of my parents were professional musicians, but my mother played the piano and taught the piano at a very early age. And my father was fanatical about music. He started playing the saxophone, but his parents stopped him. It was a very sad situation. But he became a collector of jazz records. And when he passed away recently, he's got one of the biggest private collections in the world.
Wow.
He's got thousands and tens of thousands of records. And I grew up listening to fabulous jazz and blues. I mean, really old blues, homegrown, not R&B, pure blues. And that's all I ever remember when I was a kid. I was quite clever at school. I was good at maths, and so I did well at school. But I was offered a bursary to go to America to study music, and my father was trying to encourage me to go. But I had it in my head that music was a hobby, and I never took up the opportunity to do that, despite being encouraged by my dad. He wanted to give me the opportunity that he never had. But by the time I was 11, I was in a band. I was doing sessions. I would leave school. Okay, it was South Africa, and there weren't many musicians, but there were some great musicians. But I would go home some afternoons from school, get my guitar, get on the bus, and go into town to work in studios, the equivalent of RCA, of EMI, and that in South Africa. So that was from a very young age. I joined a band when I was 13. All the other people were about 18 to 20. And we had a couple of #1 singles in South Africa.
Excellent.
Um,
What was it still blues, or what was the genre of
no,
music then?
it was kind of pop music then. The band was called the Bassmen,
Okay.
and we were kind of a society band. We had a lot of gigs. We did a lot of there was no TV or anything in South Africa at the time, but so our band was busy and I was doing my sessions, and then I went to university, and I did a degree in I don't know why, in commerce, but
Okay.
not that it's, there's no harm in studying. But when I finished that, I realized that really what I wanted to do was be a musician. And when I was about 18, I stopped everything else and just went into my music full time.
And can I ask you, you talked about you grew up around the blues, with the blues. Did you ever feel what the blues meant at that time, even at that young age? Was it a theme? Because a lot of what we've spoken about, or what I've sensed from you, is about feeling. So did the blues touch you in a certain way? Because I know where the blues has come from, it's very, sometimes it can be very mournful, but it's also telling the story of an experience.
To be honest about that, I mean, I've never been asked this question before, but I think that at the beginning, the depth of the story kind of bypassed me. I didn't understand what they were saying and why they were saying it. It was the soul of the music that was touching me.
Okay.
You know, I was listening to great jazz players like Barney Kessel and Herb Ellis and people like that, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to play like that. I wanted to be a creative musician, much more than I wanted to play pop songs. You know, I found it really easy to hear a song and play it. That wasn't a challenge for me. Really, when I started working with artists and finding out what they had been through, and I'm not actually going to mention names, it's a very sad story, but so many of the famous artists that I've worked with went through very bad times because they were being ripped off by management, by record companies, by agents and that. And at that point, I started understanding the meaning of the depth of blues, and those amazing songs about life. You know, it was the Black American way of doing folk music, which was relevant to them. Yes, at that point I did, but I think when I was very young, probably not.
But something still drew you into that space.
Yeah.
And then I guess as you grew older, it evolved into that sense of knowing, actually, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm sensing, this is what I'm knowing.
Yes.
And as we sort of move forward, you came to the UK in 1979, and I'm going to sort of move it forward a little bit more. Who was the first major artist that you worked with when you came to the UK?
Well, the first major artist I worked with was Cilla Black, who at the time was huge. And if you would have told me 6 months before I was about to leave South Africa that in 6 months' time I'd be working with Cilla Black, who had all those massive hits. Anyone who had a heart, Alfie and all, I would have said, "I don't be silly." And there I was working with her, first the summer season, then she asked me to tour with her, and she would pick up a band wherever she went, but she would always take me and her musical director, and then pick up the rest of the band. So for quite a while I was working with her.
Okay. And then after her, no, actually, and this may be a difficult question because you've worked with so many, as you mentioned before, but I would say, who was your most memorable? I mean, it might be hard to pull those out, but who has been your most memorable artist to work with? Or maybe I should try and whittle it down a bit more.
It's too hard because I can tell you one or two negative stories about one or two artists, but 99% of my stories are really positive, amazing stories about working with incredible artists. And I mean, Benny King, a perfect example. Obviously, I knew who he was, and he was doing a solo tour, and I got asked to put the band together and tour with him. And he's just one of the most amazingly lovely people I'd ever worked with. And he brought every night, when after the show, he'd finish and he'd take his bows, whatever, and leave the stage. And then we would sort of wipe our strings down and wind up a few cables and that. We'd go off stage and he was standing there waiting to thank us for an amazing show. Everyone on the tour loved him. The caterers couldn't do enough. He made touring so enjoyable for himself by the beautiful way he conducted himself. And do you want me to tell you a story about him?
Indeed.
So, Stand By Me, my favourite version is Maurice White. Have you heard Maurice White's version? Which is outstanding. So I asked Benny King whether he'd heard Maurice White's version. He said, no, he had no idea. But he knew Maurice. He had no idea that he'd recorded Stand By Me. So I found a recording of it. This is before phones and that. I put it on a cassette and I played it to him. And he just looked at me and said, that is fantastic. He said, when I get back to the States, I'm going to be calling him to tell him what an amazing job he's done. Yeah, he had such humility. Even talking about writing a song like Stand By Me, and then he heard Maurice White's version. He said, it's amazing because he wrote a new middle section for the song. Amazing. Yeah, Benny King.
But that says something also about the attitudes of a lot of the artists, as we say back in the day. A lot of them came from nothing, from poverty, pain, lots of isms, and yet there was this culture of being the best, showing up in spite of and despite of, and they did it. It was something that was the platform that a lot of them rode upon. Even you heard stories that they had to get changed. They couldn't get changed in the changing rooms. They couldn't walk. They had to go around the back, and that's enough to break any man's spirit. And yet they showed up with these incredible songs that they wrote, and they performed it from that heart and that soul felt place.
Correct.
Now that is powerful. To be able to carry yourself in the midst of all of this, that's powerful. And I guess you were influenced so much by their stories, their journeys, and your interaction with them. And I get a bit deep sometimes, I'm sorry. And then moving forward, because there's going to be a part 2 and a part 3 of this conversation. But moving forward, I'd like to talk about your upcoming performance as well. Okay. Because you've come on this incredible journey with so many incredible people, and now in a sense it's your time, Erwin.
Well, that's what I'm feeling. Having toured, recorded and worked with so many artists, both in the studio, on tour, live gigs, whatever, I just felt that it was my time. and I wanted to put a band together, not to play any particular genre of music, to play music that I loved, the way and in the style that I love playing. And I decided about just over 2 years ago, this is what I'm going to do. So I sat down, got together a list of songs that I wanted to do, started writing arrangements. They're my own arrangements, they're different thing. I love soul music, but I love funk and I love Latin music. I grew up studying Jobim and all that. I know loads of that thing, all the beautiful chords and harmonic structures that he used. So I've incorporated that into my set.
And who are you performing with? I mean, you've left out a real major part here, Erwin.
Well, I'm performing with my family. I used this opportunity to get both my daughters who sing and who love singing, and my wife who's a fabulous singer, Gaynor, to come into the band with me. And then we also have percussion, who sings as well, Graham, fabulous, drums, keyboard, bass. So we have an 8-piece band altogether, but it all features me playing classical guitar. I have a Godin, which is an electric classical guitar. Comes from Canada, the most beautiful instrument I've ever owned. And that it very much along the lines of Earl Clue, George Benson. That's the beginning of it. But then I've added my own soul and my own feel to it, because I love Sergio Mendes, I love Stevie Wonder, I love Quincy Jones and some of the stuff, Brothers Johnson. It's quite an eclectic mix of different things. Yes, but we've had 5-6 sellout shows, and we've got one coming up on the 21st of February, 2 Fridays time, at the Pheasantry at the Pizza Express Live. I think there's a few tickets left. I'm not 100% sure, but a few days ago we looked and there were a few tickets left. But we've been able to gather a bunch of people who love the band, the energy. The energy is fantastic. It's meant to be a bit of soul and some improvising and some, but at the end of the evening, everyone gets up and dances. And that wasn't meant to happen, but I'm now embracing that, because it's lovely to see people enjoying your music.
It's almost like you've come full circle, but for yourself. And like I said, there's going to be a part 2 and definitely a part 3 of this conversation, because there's so much else to Erwin and his experiences and the artists that he's worked with. And I am curious, and I hope he's piqued your curiosity. But for now, we would really love for you to show up on the 21st of February at Pizza Express, the Pheasantry,
the one, Kings Road,
Chelsea, and just be part of this incredible experience. Myself and my friend and colleague Kristen were here earlier, and we were able to sit in on the rehearsal session, and I'm just saying that you guys are in for something really special. And one thing that, like I said, resonates with Erwin is this soul thing. You know, when you connect to the soul, things are deeper and richer. And I would say, in this current time of chaos, you know, come into a space that's going to hold and symbolize something really unique to you, but take you back to basics. You know, you can sit and tap your foot, nod your head, whatever, but, you know, show up. And for any other performances throughout the year, it'll be on your website, is that correct?
We don't have a website, but we will have one. We're supposed to have built one.
Oh, was it the old one I was looking at?
It's work in progress, but it will soon be. We do reach out to the crowd of followers that we've managed to gather. We reach out to them, and it's working, because we've sold out all our performances.
So they can find you on Facebook at least under your name?
Yes, they can find Fire Feet Erwin.
Okay.
Yeah, we have got some Facebook thing. We've got a little bit of we've got a little bit of presence, but we need to work on that.
Okay.
We've been working on the music and the fantastic band of musicians that I've got. We've been working.
Fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is part one. Like I say, you know, we've just touched the surface with Erwin, but I'd like to say thank you for your time. Looking forward to Pizza Express in a few weeks' time, and just looking forward to other performances throughout the year. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're on the sofa with Esther, and I've been talking to Erwin Keiles. Erwin Keiles. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. I really enjoyed that.
The girls have always been very musical. They both did their grades in singing through school. They got up to grade 8 and they know music, but they never wanted to pursue music as a career. So this is a wonderful hobby and a wonderful family opportunity for us to be able to work together.
Yeah. I think some families, you know, they go out for food or they go for a walk. Us, we have band practice all day. There you go.
Are you going to say something, or are you going to go on? You can say.
No, we love it. It's so special to be able to do this together.
Okay, now I'm going to tell you the truth. Gaynor stopped singing for about 10 years. She wouldn't sing. And so I had this idea for my band, and I thought, I know what to do. I said to my girls, if I start my band, will you come and sing? And they both said yes. Of course, when Gaynor heard they were coming to sing, she said, oh, I'll do it as well. Now she's singing all the time and loving it more than she's ever done. So it actually worked. Getting the family band together has had a really, really lovely impact on the four of us.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, that's really lovely. I'd retired from singing. I just thought I've got to that stage where
And then we reminded her, no,
I was ready to hang up my high heels and stop, but yeah, having got back into it, I'm living my best life now.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to click the bell icon for notifications on future videos. Thank you for watching.